She walked into the courtroom calm, confident, almost untouchable. To anyone watching, she looked like a normal teenage girl. Nervous, maybe, but innocent. But behind that calm smile hid something darker. Because when the footage played, the truth hit like a bomb. A car speeding through the dark, no brakes, no hesitation, just impact. Two young men gone instantly, and the girl behind the wheel, still alive, and smiling in TikToks just days before. What really happened that night in Strongsville, Ohio? Was it a tragic mistake, or a cold-blooded plan disguised as heartbreak? Because this wasn't just another teenage crash, it was a story that would divide the internet, destroy 3 families, and leave a community asking one haunting question. Did McKenzie Shirilla mean to kill them? It was just before sunrise on July 31st, 2022. Strongsville, Ohio, a quiet suburb that rarely made headlines, would never be the same again. At 5:30 a.m., a Toyota Camry tore through an empty industrial park. Behind the wheel was 17-year-old Mackenzie Shirilla. In the passenger seat sat her boyfriend, Russo, 20 years old. In the back, their friend Davon Flanagan, only 19. Cameras caught everything. The car made a slow, controlled turn onto Progress Drive. Then the sound of the engine exploded. 100 miles per hour in a matter of seconds. No swerve, no panic. Just a straight shot into a brick warehouse. The crash was so violent that witnesses blocks away said it sounded like an explosion. When first responders arrived, they found the Camry crumpled like foil. Dominic and Devon were already gone. Mackenzie was alive, barely, pulled from the wreckage and airlifted to a hospital. To everyone who heard the news that morning, it seemed simple. A reckless teenager. A terrible accident. Another tragic story about speed and youth. But investigators would soon find something that didn't fit. No skid marks. No sign of braking. Just a perfect line of tire tracks straight into the wall. And that's when the whispers began. Whispers that this crash wasn't an accident at all. On social media, Mackenzie Shirilla looked like the last person you'd ever suspect of something dark. Her TikTok feed was full of dance trends, filters, and selfies. A bright smile, sparkly eyes, and that typical high school senior energy. To her followers, she was just another carefree teen living her best life in the suburbs. But behind those curated clips was a storm brewing, one that almost no one saw coming. Her relationship with Dominic Russo was intense from the start. They were inseparable, laughing, fighting, breaking up, and making up, all within the same week. Friends called it toxic. Some said Dominic was trying to pull away, while Mackenzie couldn't stand the idea of losing him. Their love had gone from sweet to suffocating, and every argument seemed to end with a threat or a tear. By the summer of 2022, things had reached a breaking point. She'd show up at his house unannounced, argue in driveways, cry in parking lots. One friend remembered her saying something chilling. "If I can't have him, no one will." There were text messages, too, heated ones. In one argument, Mackenzie allegedly threatened to crash her car with Dominic inside. She said it more than once. Most people brushed it off as teenage drama. But when those same words resurfaced after the crash, they sounded less like drama and more like a warning. The bubbly girl online, the one who posted smiling TikToks, was hiding anger, obsession, and emotional chaos. And that darkness was about to turn deadly. It was the last night of July 2022. Mackenzie, Dominic, and Devon had spent the evening hanging out. Nothing unusual, at least on the surface. They were seen laughing, talking, and driving around the quiet streets of Strongsville. No one knew it would be their final ride together. Just before dawn, at 5:30 a.m., the streets were empty. The only sound, the hum of Mackenzie's Toyota Camry rolling through the industrial park. Surveillance cameras caught every second. She turned onto Progress Drive, smooth, deliberate, no sign of panic. Then, in an instant, her foot slammed the accelerator to the floor. The engine roared as the car hit 100 miles per hour. Dominic sat in the passenger seat. Devon was in the back. Neither of them had time to scream. The car didn't swerve. It didn't slow down. It plowed straight into a brick warehouse wall, full speed. The impact was catastrophic. Metal twisted, glass shattered, and the front of the car folded in on itself. By the time first responders arrived, the scene was chaos. Dominic and Devon were gone. Mackenzie, somehow, was alive, unconscious, but breathing. Bodycam footage later captured the desperate scramble to save her. "Bust that window out!" one voice shouted. "She's breathing!" another yelled back. To anyone on that scene, it looked like a horrific accident. A reckless teenager, maybe speeding, maybe distracted. But as police began piecing things together, the evidence started to whisper a different story. No skid marks, no attempt to brake, no mechanical failure. Just one terrifying truth. The key had gone full throttle, and Mackenzie never tried to stop. At first, investigators thought it was just another reckless driving case, a speeding teen who lost control. But when they looked closer, the facts didn't match the story. The car's black box, a small device that records every movement, told a chilling truth. Mackenzie had pressed the accelerator all the way down for several seconds before impact. 100% throttle, zero braking, not even a tap. The car didn't slide or skid. It went straight. Perfectly straight. Like someone aiming for a target. And that wasn't all. Just days before the crash, Mackenzie had been caught on a nearby surveillance camera, driving the exact same route, same road, same turn. Only this time, she didn't crash. It looked like practice. Police started asking questions. Was this a rehearsal? Had she been planning it? When investigators dug deeper, they uncovered text messages that made their stomachs turn. Fights, breakups, threats. The pattern was clear. Mackenzie's relationship with Dominic had become a ticking time bomb. In one argument, she'd said something that now felt like a prophecy. "You think I'm joking?" You'll see, friends came forward too. They said she'd made threats before, that she'd once said she'd crash her car with him inside. At the time, it sounded dramatic. Now it sounded deliberate. Prosecutors began to see the bigger picture. This wasn't an accident. It was premeditated. Every piece of evidence, the black box, the video, the threats, lined up like puzzle pieces spelling one word: murder. But what really shocked people came next: the way Mackenzie acted when she was finally arrested. 3 weeks after the crash, the truth had become impossible to ignore. Investigators had the footage, the data, the texts, and a story that no longer looked like an accident. On August 22, 2022, officers quietly entered Metro Health Medical Center, where McKenzie Shirilla was still recovering from her injuries. She was in a hospital gown, surrounded by machines, when they read her rights. The moment was calm, eerily calm. As officers cuffed her wrists, Mackenzie didn't scream or resist. She just whispered, "Please, don't break the bracelet." Her tone was polite, almost gentle. One officer even promised, "We won't tighten them." That small exchange said everything. This wasn't the reaction of someone blindsided by an accusation. It was the stillness of someone who already knew what was coming. On the ride to the station, her emotions flipped like a switch. One moment, she was silent, staring blankly out the window. The next, tears streamed down her face, only to vanish seconds later as she steadied herself again. Officers described her mood as unpredictable. Some called it grief. Others thought it looked like guilt. To the public, the story was spiraling into chaos. People were divided, half seeing Mackenzie as a heartbroken teen who made a terrible mistake, and half convinced she was a manipulative killer who had planned everything. But no one could deny one thing: her behavior didn't match her story. Because while she claimed to remember nothing, the evidence remembered everything. A year after the crash, the world finally saw the case that had haunted Strongsville. In August 2023, McKenzie Shirilla, now 18, walked into the courtroom, face pale, eyes down, dressed like the picture of innocence. But the evidence stacked against her told a completely different story. She was charged with murder, felonious assault, and endangering a minor, since Devon, the backseat passenger, had nothing to do with her feud with Dominic. Mackenzie waived her right to a jury trial. Her fate rested entirely in the hands of one person, Judge Nancy Margaret Russo. The defense painted her as a devastated teenager, a girl who'd made a tragic mistake and lost control of the car. They said she had no memory of what happened, that trauma had erased the details. They pleaded for mercy, calling her heartbroken, not heartless. But the prosecution didn't buy it. They called her actions methodical. They said she had rehearsed the route days earlier, pressed the gas intentionally, and aimed the car like a weapon. Then came the moment that sealed her fate, when the video played. The courtroom fell silent. Everyone watched as Mackenzie's Camry sped down Progress Drive. No hesitation, no braking, just impact. Gasps filled the room. Even those who wanted to believe it was an accident couldn't look away from what they saw. Combined with the black box data, her past threats, and the rehearsal footage, her entire defense crumbled. Judge Russo leaned forward, her voice firm and cold. "This," she said, "was not reckless driving. This was murder." And in that moment, the confident teen who once thought she'd walk free realized she wasn't walking out of that courtroom at all. When Judge Nancy Russo read the verdict, the room felt frozen in time. Mackenzie Shirilla, guilty on all counts. She stood motionless for a second, then broke down. Tears streamed down her face, hands shaking, whispering, "No, please, no." The same girl who once smiled confidently in court was now collapsing under the weight of her own choices. Judge Russo's words cut through the silence like a knife. This was not reckless driving. This was murder. Your actions were controlled, methodical, deliberate, and intentional. Then came the sentence: 2 concurrent life terms, with a chance at parole after 15 years. A teenager who once dreamed about college and TikTok fame now faced the reality of growing old behind bars. But the real heartbreak came from the families, the people left behind. Dominic's mother, Christine Russo, sobbed as she spoke. "Mackenzie was part of our family, but she took my son." Her voice cracked. "I lost 3 children that day, Dominic, Devon, and the girl who threw their lives away." Then Davin's mother, Jamie Flanagan, took the stand. Her words silenced the entire courtroom. My son had a heart of gold. He protected people. He loved everyone, even those who didn't deserve it. He didn't die in an accident. He was taken, every word was soaked in pain. There was no anger left, only heartbreak. And still, beyond the courtroom walls, the internet buzzed with debates. Some people insisted Mackenzie was just a broken teen consumed by emotion. Others saw her as a manipulator, someone who weaponized sympathy to escape blame. But inside that courtroom, none of that mattered. Two young men were gone forever. Two families shattered beyond repair. And a once promising life now defined by one decision that could never be undone. After the verdict, the world didn't move on. It exploded. Clips from the trial spread across TikTok, YouTube, and Reddit. Everyone had an opinion. Some saw Mackenzie as a murderer who had planned every move. Others said she was a lost teenager, a victim of her own emotions, punished for one catastrophic mistake. Debates turned ugly online. People dissected her facial expressions, her tone, her tears. Was she crying for the lives she took, or for herself? No one could agree. Then came the rumors. Some reports suggested Mackenzie had suffered mental breakdowns before the crash, that she'd been spiraling emotionally for weeks, but none of it was ever confirmed. Rumors claim she'd threatened to end it all more than once, one post said. Another speculated she planned it after another breakup fight. But as investigators clarified, much of that talk was just speculation, whispers amplified by social media. What wasn't speculation was the aftermath. 3 families destroyed, 2 young men gone forever, and a community left wondering how something so horrific could happen in a place so ordinary. Outside the courtroom, as Mackenzie was led away in cuffs, someone shouted, "Why, Mackenzie? Why did you do it?" She didn't answer. She just stared ahead, eyes empty, lips trembling, like a girl caught somewhere between denial and regret. In the months since, the case has become a chilling reminder of how quickly love can twist into obsession, and how one impulsive moment can destroy everything. Some call her evil. Some call her broken. But everyone agrees on one thing. Nothing about that night was an accident. Because in the end, this story isn't just about McKenzie Shirilla. It's about choices. The kind that seem small in the moment, until they change lives forever. In the end, this story leaves behind more questions than answers. A small town shattered. 2 young men who'll never grow older. And a teenage girl who'll spend years wondering how one moment, one decision, destroyed everything. Was it heartbreak? Was it rage? Or something much darker? A quiet plan masked by teenage innocence? The evidence says one thing, but intent? That's something only Mackenzie will ever truly know. Her story isn't just a headline, it's a warning about what happens when emotion turns to obsession, when love turns to control, and when one impulsive second behind the wheel becomes a lifetime of regret. Strongsville will never forget that morning, because no sentence, no verdict, no punishment can bring Dominic and Davon back. Their families live with a silence that never ends and a wound that will never heal. So now the question is yours. Do you think it was an accident or intentional? Let me know what you believe in the comments. And if stories like this make you stop and think, hit like, subscribe for more true crime stories that reveal the darkest corners of human choices, and click the next video on your screen. Because what comes next is even harder to believe.